Hey, hi, Girl Scouts. I'm Flask, and I'm a volunteer with the Girl Scouts of the Green and White Mountains. Last time we were together, we talked about an overhand knot, but we did not talk about how that is foundational to the square knot. So I'm going to start by tying an overhand knot just with the ends of my cord, and if I pull it tight, I got an overhand knot. To make a square knot, I'm going to tie an overhand knot and then another overhand knot going the other direction. And it's going to make a knot like that. This is a really strong knot. It's easily tied and will come undone easily. One of the traditional uses for a square knot is tying sails to rigging on sailing ships or binding parcels. So you know what, I'm going to pick up a dark piece of cord to show you on this towel. So I'm going to make right over left, pull that tight, and then left over right, pull that tight. It's a lot like the knot you use to tie your shoes, and that will stay nice and tied. So let's look at it on the table. So last time we talked, we tied an overhand knot. If I do that in the ends of the cord, just like that, if I keep pulling until I get all the way to the bottom of the loop, I get an overhand knot. But if we're going to tie a square knot, we'll start with an overhand knot, and then another overhand knot coming from the opposite direction. And that's really important, and I'll show you why later. But that's what a square knot looks like. It's a really strong knot if it has pressure on all four parts of it. And it is a knot that was traditionally used for holding sails to parts of riggings on sailing ships. And it is a really good knot for tying a bundle tight. You can't lift well with it because when you pull it on its diagonal, it turns into something else and comes apart. So the old saying is right over left and left over right. Makes the knot neat, tidy, and tight. And you can see it's got two parts. It makes that beautiful two loops that are interlocked. And the two parts here go through one loop, and the two parts here go through the other loop. So let's see what happens if we tie it with two same way overhand knots. Right over left, and then I'm going to take this one and put it over the left again. And it looks pretty similar. It's still got two loops that interlock, but do you see what it is here? Do you see what it is here? One leg goes under and one leg goes over. And they call that a granny knot. But the problem with a granny knot is that it will just come undone. What if we take an extra loop, extra time around on the bottom, and then do it over the top? That actually will increase its holding power. You want it to give it a little give. So if you tie it like that, you have some room for pull. So a variation on the ligature knot is used by surgeons. And it's handy for a couple other specialized purposes. So let's look at the square knot again. I've come over to the right, and now I'm going to go the opposite way. And notice my beautiful interlocking loops and the two legs going between in the loops like that. So now what happens if I pull it out this way, just for giggles? If I put through the loop here, and I go around both legs, and then I bring it back out through the loop again. Why, look, I've got another square knot. Notice the long part's on the bottom and the short parts are on the top. But let's play around with that a little bit. I'm going to tie a knot that's very similar to the square knot. It's exactly the square knot, only it has an important difference. So I'm going to bring this around both and then put the short end through on the bottom. So it looks a lot like the square knot, but it's got the long parts going crosswise this way and the two short parts this way, so that makes kind of a weird X. Structurally, it's still very similar, but it'll come apart. And that variation, where the parts that go through and around make kind of an X diagonal. It's not even a square knot anymore. If you tie it that way, it's called a thief's knot. And there's a story that sailors used to tie it this way as a binding knot around bags or sacks, and that they would tie it this way so that a thief would come and undo their knot and be discovered, because when the thief would reseal the bag, supposedly he would always tie a square knot. And there's no record of that ever happening, but that's the story. So let's look at what happens if we do the same thing with the granny knot, because I thought this was kind of fun and decided to try that. So to make the granny knot, I've got to come in from the top, around one leg, weave through, and then back out the loop. All right. So I've tied it so short end makes an X with the other short end, and the long end makes an X with the other long end. And this is why this is a terrible knot. It's called the what knot, and it too comes right loose. Anyway, those are my 4 variations on the square knot. I'm going to tie the square knot again so you can see that. Look how beautiful and even that is. The square knot's a foundational knot. It does what it's supposed to do really well. It's a great knot for tightening a bundle if you're pulling around something, because you can tighten from either side. You can tie it from either side. But then once it's set, it doesn't give you an opportunity to pull the bundle any tighter. And you can get it to untie by pushing in on it and then just loosening it. You can also get it to untie by pulling across it diagonally, and it'll spill and come undone. So once more, just for giggles, I'm going to go right over left, and left over right. Makes the knot neat, tidy, and tight. That's the square knot. So that's the square knot and its variations. I hope you find that useful and keep tying.